The first keynote speaker is the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. He served 9 years as the UN Secretary General and made a tremendous contribution to mobilizing world leaders to address new global challenges, including climate change. He's also been striving to provide a voice to the world's most vulnerable people. So please welcome Secretary General Ban Ki-moon.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Honorable Fuji Teruo, President of the University of Tokyo, Honorable Tae-Won, Chairman of SK Group and Chair of CHEY Institute for Advanced Studies, distinguished professors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and keynote speakers. It is my great privilege to deliver these keynote remarks here at the Tokyo Forum 2022. Before beginning, allow me to express my heartfelt congratulations on the organization of this timely forum, which is being held at a particularly vital juncture for our common global efforts in shaping our future. My special thanks go to the University of Tokyo and the CHEY Institute for Advanced Studies for all of their hard work in preparing this important forum. In this regard, I'd like to thank Ambassador Park In-guk, who has meticulously arranged this meeting. My also gratitude extends to all of the distinguished participants, keynote speakers, and partners from Japan and Korea and beyond, who have come together to exchange views and ideas in order to chart a better path for humanity during a period of pronounced changes. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves at the center of a variety of convincing crises and increased uncertainty in our globalized world. Geopolitical tensions is intensifying, particularly between the United States and China on the one hand, and also between the United States and Russia on the other hand. The illegal Russian invasion against Ukraine represents one of the most dangerous moments for global security in decades. Competition and conflict define the relationship between the two superpowers, the United States and China, affecting the overall security situation throughout the world. At the same time, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has continued to disrupt our economies, societies, and way of daily life, including person-to-person contact. In addition, our planet is on fire, both literally and figuratively, with the climate crisis deepening as the temperatures surge, floods rage, sea levels rise, and wildfires burn. COVID-19 and other global crises, such as climate change, have underlined our fundamental interconnectedness. They have also made it clear that we need global solutions to address the challenges that we are facing now, as well as a new common understanding of what our societies should be in the future. Such solutions must be rooted in security, partnerships, and sustainability, and centered on enhancing the freedom, rights, and resilience for people and our planet. Under this backdrop of COVID-19, conflict, and planetary crisis, I believe we still have opportunities to contribute to the construction of a new universal good. We can achieve this through the power of cooperation, building peace and sustainability, and by engaging in a deeper and more thorough dialogue between philosophy and science. But we must play all our part, including key academics like yourselves, leaders, and experts like those who participate in today's forum, in order to succeed in creating a more peaceful future for all of us. But, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today, armed conflict, pandemics, and climate change are converging with all others. As a result, they are exacerbating socio-economic development crises and hampering a key global cooperation. Now more than ever, we require innovative multi-stakeholder partnership to confront the challenges. This is true in regards to building peace, persevering over pandemics, and taking climate action. As such, we must elevate our efforts in the following critical spheres. First, at the beginning, the global community must do much more to advance freedom and security and address the fallout and transnational spillover from the horrible war in Ukraine. This is the most serious challenge we are collectively facing because it constitutes a flagrant violation of the international law, including the United Nations Charter. The war's humanitarian impact is staggering. Nearly 7,000 Ukrainian civilians have been killed, and another 10,000 injured, and grave war crimes have been committed, including in Bucha, Mariupol, and Kherson. Since Russia's illegal invasion started on February 24th this year, more than 6.5 million Ukrainians have been made refugees, and another 8 million people are currently internally displaced. And the tragedy of this criminal and futile war is not restricted to the region. Really, it has multiplying global impacts. Particularly, the war in Ukraine is affecting development and security far from the front lines of the conflict. This has compounded pre-existing socio-economic and environmental pressure, which is stemming from COVID-19, climate change, inflation, and supply chain disruptions, and has resulted in a dire energy and food crisis. Energy costs are fluctuating all over the world, putting direct pressure on population as well as our planet, as governments recalculate their climate and energy policies. Particularly, European countries are entering into a worrying winter in the vortex of ongoing war in Ukraine. European Commission has even raised the specter of conflict and strife over energy prices and shortages. And Europe is not alone. For example, South Africa is facing power cuts. Angry consumers in Lebanon stormed their energy ministry. And there were protests even in Haiti, Argentina, Indonesia, Ecuador, and many more over surging fuel crisis. At the same time, food prices, acute hunger, and the potential for famine are now spiraling around the world. The biggest victims of this situation are African and Arab countries importing grain from abroad. Indeed, the World Food Programme wants that by the end of this year, 1.9 billion people who live in more than 50 countries could face starvation and expanded famine. As such, I believe that the climate crisis and other countries and stakeholders must step up their support for the essential work of UN WFP, World Food Programme, UNICEF, UN refugee agencies, and others who are providing critical relief on the various front lines of this deepening global crisis. Second, we must elevate collective efforts to bolster global health security, persevere over existing threats, and prepare for new ones in today's age of pandemics and multifaceted crises. COVID-19 and other viruses of newly elevated concerns, such as Marburg virus disease MVD, have brought into focus the health and security implications of biodiversity loss. As biodiversity and habitats are seriously destroyed due to the environmental damages, wild animals have increasingly come into contact with human beings. In consequences, more novel viruses have spread. Indeed, nearly all of the viruses that have emerged in the 21st century, for example, from SARS in 2003, Ebola in 2014, to COVID-19 today, share the characteristics of being common infectious diseases that have jumped between animals and human beings. As such, the climate crisis and pandemics are two sides of the same coins and inherently intertwined. As such, with over 640 million global cases and 6.6 million tragic global deaths, COVID-19 continues to cause vast suffering and difficulties around the world nearly 3 years on. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 has also exacerbated existing inequalities in health, labor, housing, food, gender, and other key areas. These impacts, alongside rising inflation, are now converging with the ongoing war and climate change to supercharge the most significant global socio-economic crisis since the Great Depression in 1930s. Given this troubling situation, it is clear that the current recovery will be both prolonged and arduous. And this is true as vaccine and therapeutic inequity continues to extend the pandemic for so many all around the world, in particular those in developing countries. The fact of the matter remains that the global response has been both too slow and too unequal. This is both shameful and counterproductive as we strive to defeat COVID-19 and simultaneously prepare for the next pandemic. Fortunately, science has blessed us with the incredible new vaccine technology at breakneck speed. However, I think we have failed ethically and morally by prioritizing self-interest over universality, partnership, and solidarity. In this context, we must remember that in an inherently interconnected world, no one is safe until everyone is safe. This is what I have been repeatedly saying to the people of the world. We have the tools, science, and resources, and ability to do much more, but just lack the political will. Third, in this context, we must better interlink national and global COVID-19 recoveries to climate action and the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The pandemic has exemplified the need to build our societies and planet back in a greener, more sustainable, and inclusive way. Indeed, we need to elevate multi-stakeholder partnership action to achieve the United Nations global goals, namely the Paris Climate Change Agreement and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, SDG in short. The climate crisis is here and now. Therefore, we urgently need elevated ambition, action, and political will to slash carbon emissions, reaching carbon neutrality by 2050, implement the Paris Climate Change Agreement, and safeguard the future viability of both humanity and our planet. The global response is critical. Accordingly, we must resist the temptation to backpedal towards fossil fuels and instead accelerate the green transition despite the war in Ukraine. This is particularly important in the wake of somewhat mixed results of recent COP27 climate conference held in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. While welcoming the positive outcome, including historic breakthrough on the establishment of loss and damage after 30 years of discussion started in 1991, I am a bit disappointed to note that closing statement did not fully embrace 1.5 degrees Celsius target. I call on world leaders to faithfully implement their commitment. This agreement is important, but what is more important is that they will have to make a detailed programs for loss and damage. I'm not sure how long it will take they should not take another 30 years. And there was a very important agreement and promise made by Japan, United States, European Union in 2009 that they will provide $100 billion every year from 2020 for developing countries. After 13 years of their promise, this has not been met yet. I'm urging, taking this opportunity, again, those countries to provide $100 billion annually. The headquarters is now located in Korea. The GCF, Green Climate Fund. This Green Climate Fund is empty. It's almost an empty shell. The promise is a promise, must be kept. We urgently need enhanced ambition and action in the spheres of climate mitigation, adaptation, innovation, and financing in order to implement the UN global goals. Limit temperature rise below 1.5 degrees and protect biodiversity and save our planet. And every fraction of a degree matters immensely. Consider the fact that according to the United Nations, at 1.5 degrees Celsius warming, 6% of the world's insects will lose over 50% of their habitats. However, if it goes up to 2 degrees Celsius, a staggering 18% of all insects will lose half of their habitats. A recent State of the World's Birds report, birds, the flying birds, they warn that climate change and human actions have put 49% of birds species in decline and 1 in 8 under threat of extinction. When we talk about extinction, scientists warn that within 100 years, we may face sixth mass extinction. What does this mass extinction mean? That means more than 70% of species, animals, and human beings will perish. Then when the fifth mass extinction happened, 65 million years ago, it happened 65 million years ago, where and when all these famous dinosaurs all perished. Should we suffer, our human being, this kind of sixth mass extinction? I think we can prevent it if we raise our political ambition, if we provide financial support. This kind of warning exemplifies the gravity of extinction level situation currently transpiring and elucidate the real need for paradigm shifting, universality that prioritizes sustainable co-living with the nature and ecosystem. Under this backdrop, acting now to fight climate change must be the overarching task of our lifetimes. Only by doing so, we can transform historic global commitments, such as the Paris Climate Change Agreement and the UN SDGs, into decisive local action. These are two conjoined visions the United Nations has presented to the world. These are most ambitious, far-reaching, most inclusive action plans. And I'm proud that to have prioritized these things during my time as a Secretary General. Indeed, SDGs represent humanity's ultimate objective for living in a shared community. Without the SDGs, we would be in a constant struggle. As Thomas Hobbes once described, quote, a war of all men against all men, unquote. Unless we fulfill the SDGs, peace and security, as well as human rights, cannot be attained. Progress towards the SDG in the Asia-Pacific region and beyond has slowed, as the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change have exacerbated development challenges. The 2022 UN ESCA Progress Report on the SDGs highlight the sobering fact that the Asia-Pacific region is not currently on track to achieve by any of these 17 goals. This underlines urgent need for enhanced collaboration and partnerships to ensure that no one and no country in the Asia-Pacific region or beyond is left behind, as SDG progress stagnates due to the continuing proliferation of overlapping crises. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, today we are living in an era of the fourth industrial revolution, as well as in a new Cold War-like period. As such, we cannot overemphasize the importance of science and technology, as well as its direct impact on security and development. There lies importance of academia to do much more. And we cannot overemphasize the importance of science and technology, as well as its direct impact on security and development. But science and technology cannot exist in a vacuum, and the way forward must also be underpinned with a sound ethics and morality based on human-centered approach. Since human civilization in the 21st century requires convergence and connectivity, much closer collaboration between human science and applied science is all the more needed. In this sense, the theme of this year's Tokyo Forum is very timely and well chosen. I think that emerging technologies must be human-faced. I'm particularly concerned about the worst-case scenario that machines or robots could decide humans' life or death. Our future should be determined by human beings, by us. As William Henley declared in his poem, we must be the master of our fate, and we are the captains of our soul. Ladies and gentlemen, let us work together to make this world sustainable and transfer this our planet Earth to our succeeding generation in a sustainable manner. Let us work together, and thank you very much for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General Ban, for your important message. The next keynote speaker is HASEGAWA Mariko, President of the Graduate University for Advanced Studies. Please join me in welcoming President Hasegawa.
Thank you very much for inviting me today as a keynote speaker at Tokyo Forum 2022, Shaping the Future. It is a great honor to be here today to discuss the future of the world along with His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, former Secretary General of the United Nations, and Dr. Paul ALIVISATOS, President of the University of Chicago, who is participating via video, and many other distinguished people. And also, I'd like to express my gratitude towards the SK Foundation and the CHEY Institute for Advanced Studies as well. And today's theme is dialogue between philosophy and science. The world today has changed drastically from what it was a mere decade ago, including but not limited to the environmental destruction and climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, and Russian invasion of Ukraine, and increasing income inequality, along with radical changes in the information environment due to the proliferation of the internet and the social media, and so on. And the common sense of the past no longer seems to apply. And the common sense of the past can most certainly no longer be assumed as common sense. So what then is common sense? We will surely have to re-examine the fundamental understandings upon which it was built. Moving forward, we will need to maintain the understandings that should be maintained and changes those that should be changed. In other words, I believe that it is necessary for us to construct a new worldview. The 20th century was an era of economic growth and development, as well as an era of both colonial independence and expansions to the scope of the human rights. Everything was always on the upswing, and the people believed that tomorrow, next year, and the future would only get better and better. That was back when those of my generation were in our youth. We were so naive, I think so. As a result, the world did indeed become more affluent. Many countries gained their independence, and the rights of women and minorities have steadily expanded. Those were good things. On the other hand, destruction of the natural environment due to human activities and the extinction of non-human species has been progressing at an alarming rate. Over the 4.6 billion years of the Earth's history, there have been several major extinctions of living organisms, all of which were the result of natural causes and took hundreds of thousands of years to occur. However, the extinctions that are occurring today are the results of the activities of one particular species, we humans. And what's more, they are happening over the course of just a few hundred years, a mere moment, geohistorically speaking. Those were, but on the other hand, what's this? Alarming rate, the world population. Yes, the world population recently reached 8 billion. Yeah, amazingly, 8 billion people living here. From a biological point of view, this indicates that the human animal is thriving at a disproportionate rate. Unfortunately, though, not all of these 8 billion people are living happily. And the fact is that disparities and inequalities continue to increase in severity. And some countries have lost portions of their land due to rising sea levels resulting from climate change, and other countries still suffer from widespread hunger. And COP27 was just held in Egypt, and there was much discussion about who should take responsibility for these issues and in what manner. And the world view of the future will likely be one in which humans, as a single animal species within the larger framework of the global ecosystem, will work to increase their own well-being while properly recognizing the benefits provided by the natural environment. And this broad outlook seems increasingly shared throughout the world, although no one yet knows how it can be achieved. And my background is physical or biological anthropology. That today, based on this background, I would like to share some of my thoughts on the theme of dialogue between philosophy and science. In the first place, what is natural science? It is a curiosity-based quest to understand why natural phenomena are the way they are. The human animal is able to categorize things and abstract things. Humans also have the ability to perceive the relationship between things in terms of cause and effects. So it is only natural that such an animal would want to understand the causal relationships between natural phenomena. And ever since ancient times, humans throughout the world have made various discoveries driven by this interest. Yet, modern science was not established until around 17th century in Europe. Instead of attributing causes of natural phenomena to the unexplainable, such as God, a framework was established, the scientific method, that focused on the research through a process of putting forth descriptions based on experiments and observations, developing logical theories, and formulating and testing hypotheses. There were much of philosophy in the making of modern science. Then science began to make rapid progress as a result. I do not believe that the pursuit of natural science itself is necessarily based on an anthropocentric value system. My view is that the science has the ability within itself to topple its own hypotheses and turn them into something new. Speaking of anthropocentrism, I think the best example of that was the concept of geocentrism. Modern science, however, demonstrated it to be incorrect and switched to heliocentrism. So this is a good example of how modern science has caused a major shift in people's values. I believe that the problem is with technologies. I think that problem is not science, but how to use science. And I believe that the problem is with technologies, that applied understandings achieved through natural science. I am using the term technology to refer to the invention of things that are useful for human life. And this was originally a process of trial and error that took place apart from the pursuit of natural science. So no matter when or where you look throughout history, there has never been a culture that didn't develop technology. Ever since the establishment of the modern science, however, scientific methodologies and technology have been linked. And we humans are now able to produce what we want based on our scientific understanding of phenomena much more efficiently than through mere trial and error. So what is the driving force behind the development of technology? It is human desire. Human beings want such kind of thing. It is human desire. So desire to move faster and carry more things with greater ease led to the creation of automobiles. And the desire to produce more food led to the development of various agricultural technologies, fertilizers, and pesticides. And the desire to communicate faster and more conveniently led to the creation of telegraph and the telephone technologies. And the reason these technologies proliferated so quickly was because people desired them, people wanted them. And however, was there what we might call philosophy in the development of these technologies? I suspect that there was not. Engineers developing new technologies driven by what interests them have been leveraging their knowledge to produce what the public desires. If their products cause some sort of unexpected and unpleasant issue to arise, then the engineers address it. So through this process, if air pollution becomes a problem due to the production and the proliferation of cars, they design the engines to be cleaner. And if the number of car accidents skyrockets to the level of a social problem, they design cars to be safer. Individual technologies are optimized to meet people's needs in one particular aspect. However, this brings in negative effects that were not initially imagined, which they then naturally use technology to try to rectify. And I suspect that this has been a repeating cycle. And I do not believe there was any underlying philosophy there. Yeah, that was the main process of technological development in 20th century. I think that it was possible because the world was not yet quite saturated at that time, and the people were able to have free hand. However, now, in the 21st century, real bad effects of this free hand development are now becoming more obvious to all of us. And I think things are changing. Ecologists, including myself, ecologists worldwide have been warning about the danger of mass extinction of other species, of environmental destruction, and of climate change since decades ago. But people didn't pay enough attention to. I think many people could understand at that time, but many people could understand the meaning of their warning, but did not feel the need to change their behavior during 1960s through 1990s until now. They still pursued their own good life based on their desire, just that. But then the real bad effects of those human activities have become more and more obvious, and the social atmosphere took turn for a drastic game change. Now everywhere people were talking about carbon neutral, zero emission, just talking about, but anyway talking about the carbon neutral, zero emission and circular economy or life cycle assessment of products. At the back of this change, I think there was some philosophical change in the minds of influential people. So I think including His Excellency Ban Ki-moon. So I think that there is a hope here. If there is a handful of influential people who can set up a goal based on a new philosophy, other people will follow. Then they can change the world. I think that it was what occurred about the problem of climate change. Now, I have another concern, another point. Today, we live in an age with advanced information technologies, such as computers, AI, search engines, and the internet. These technologies do not augment human physical capabilities like cars do, but rather replace or augment the functions of human cognitive activities. I believe that these technologies have a tremendous influence on human nature, and the spread of these technologies may change human nature. Underlying philosophy is most certainly needed in this case. Over the long history of human evolution, the information was acquired by individuals through their own sensory and perceptual experiences. Language-based information, including writings, is a transmission through means other than one's own experience, but it is still information that is conveyed by some specific other entity. However, nowadays, we live in a society where large amounts of information are instantly disseminated throughout the world without a way of clearly knowing upon whose perceptions it is founded, the circumstances of their experience, context, or upon what it is based. Relationships between people are beginning to no longer be exclusively face-to-face and personal. And somehow people seem to like this situation. People love to make chats each other wherever they are, and the people love to send their emotion-based one-sided opinion instantly and anonymously. It's a pleasure. And now we see a lot of unintended bad side effects which they brought about, especially among young children. I believe that this situation will bring about a fundamental transformation in our beliefs, the trust in others, friendships, values, and all the other things that are so important to us as human beings. Therefore, I feel that we truly are in need of a dialogue with philosophy in regard to the development of these type of information technologies. However, even if such a dialogue were to take place, how would it affect future development of information technology, even if we have such a dialogue? I think that philosophy is ultimately about the way individuals think, using one's frontal lobe. And emotions, feelings, and the desires influence people's behavior much more directly than that. If we leave this matter to a world based on the principles of the market, where what can be sold is produced and what sells proliferates, I think that this will lead to a drastic change of society and human nature. However, the case with the climate change may give us a hope if there are a handful of influential people who are aware of the danger and determined to change the situation. And if they can find out a way to change the public's motivation, I think we can change. I am, in a sense, quite pessimistic because I think it's too late or too slow a change. People do not change their behavior for the sake of a great philosophical idea. They change their behavior when they like it or it is profitable to them. So the people who have real concern about the current situation of the world should not be content with the scientific method to solve the problem, but should also invent or find out a way to change people's motivation. It is a great challenge, I think. I believe that we must seriously consider what it means for people to be happy and strive no matter the cost to critically examine the state of technology based on the goals we set as a result. I get the feeling that many things I have said today has been pessimistic, and it is true that I am pessimistic about the state of the world today. I have grown old, and I think that it doesn't so much matter if I am pessimistic or other, because I myself don't have very long future. But for the younger generation, it is very important. The future stretches out before you. And it is imperative that we ensure, we older generations as well, ensure that your future is a good one. I very much look forward to the ideas and the wisdom that the youth have to offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Hasegawa. Now, the final keynote address has been pre-recorded. We will hear from Paul ALIVISATOS, the president of the University of Chicago.
Good evening. It is my great pleasure to have the opportunity to address you on this first day of the Tokyo Forum, alongside such esteemed scholars and leaders. I regret that I am unable to join you all in person. I would like to express my deep gratitude to the University of Tokyo and the CHEY Institute for convening this promising forum. Through this gathering, we have been invited to consider what partnership there might be between philosophy and science in a world facing war, pandemic, and climate change. These may sometimes feel like overwhelming issues, yet there is so much reason for hope in humanity's ability to address them. But first, I'd like to speak about the beauty of the natural world. Years ago, I came to Japan as a tourist with my wife Nicole and our 2 young daughters. On that trip, we visited the Shogun Stroll Garden at Ginkakuji Temple. We were mesmerized by the beauty. Since then, on every trip to Japan, I have made it a point to visit the local gardens where I can take in their deep cultural and philosophical approach to understanding and cultivating the potential for human intervention and natural activity to coexist harmoniously. This representation of harmony offers us some lessons as we think about how science is causing 3 shifts in nature as they relate to philosophy. These shifts touch upon challenges related to climate and energy, threats to human health, and the transformation that will come with the unfolding of the quantum era. When we consider the garden, we see an analog, and we can understand how philosophy must inform this era of science and technology. The first shift relates to the Anthropocene era itself. In a sense, there is no longer such a thing as a natural world that is untouched and unshaped by human interference. The natural world and human activity will forevermore be deeply interdependent. We are now engineers of our climate. This obligation demands careful stewardship. We must learn to do that work with a deep awareness of the far-reaching impact that our individual and collective actions have. The changes in our relationship to nature help explain why so many people around the world are hesitant to accept mRNA-enabled vaccine technology. The stunning speed of the development of the COVID-19 vaccines heralds a new era of biology. The complexity of this new biology is so far ahead of what we commonly understand as natural and human. In the face of such a deficit, the speed and force with which this new era has arrived has undermined social harmony. In this era, biological science has moved from a state of reading to that of writing. With the acceleration of highly precise and powerful technologies, we are unlocking an unprecedented scale of discovery. It is still early days, but this evolution will also upset our understanding of our relationship with the natural world. Our positioning relative to nature may be fundamentally altered. Quantum science and technology represent their own dramatic shift. We are now on the cusp of harnessing the microscopic laws of the quantum world for new global technologies, sensing, communication, and computing. The implications of discovery in this field are vast, to the extent that at this moment we likely cannot fully comprehend the changes ahead of us. These three shifts will transform the human experience as we know it, but philosophy, or the avenues by which we understand the world around us and our relationship to it, need not be in tension with science. If we want science to come to the benefit of society, we must start by confronting the philosophical challenges as an integral part of the work, not something that gets added on later. Rather than simply moving at the pace of change that technology dictates, we must make the time to consider our very conception of what it means to be human in this altered reality. I see this as a modern form of practice of the millennial-old art of crafting Japanese gardens with a view towards harmony. The aesthetics and philosophy that first inspired the expression of the Japanese garden contended with the relationship between humanity and nature. While the nature of this conception of harmony shifts and changes over the centuries, yet the invitation it offers to pause and engage in deep reflection and consideration of that relationship has not changed. For as dynamic as the relationship between the human experience and the technology it produces and nature may be, they are entirely intertwined with one another. If we engage the philosophical implications of that relationship, we invite a better future. The challenges before us are immense, but they are not intractable. The scale of these challenges requires that local and global conversations and the science around them be driven by philosophy. While the circumstances around the issues may differ across national borders, we must work together to leverage the knowledge and technology our institutions generate, be they educational, industrial, or governmental, to transform our communities at home and abroad for the better. I wish you a successful conference. Thank you.
That was Paul ALIVISATOS, President of the University of Chicago. Thank you very much. Next, we'd like to invite the keynote speakers here in Tokyo on the stage again for a conversation with President Fujii. So please welcome back Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, President HASEGAWA Mariko, and President Fujii on the stage again. Please come forward. President Fujii,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. First, I'd like to thank all the speakers for their wonderful keynotes. And here I would like to discuss a little bit about the future. And here, the Tokyo Forum's overall theme is shaping the future. So that I would like to ask you, two of you, a question about your youth involvement. So, this is in fact inspired by the Chairman Chey's suggestion to learn from the young people. And also Professor Hasegawa's talk, she also suggests to also see the wisdom and wisdom of the younger people.
I'm old. I'm too old.
Yeah. And in fact, as also I attended this year a meeting which is called Stockholm Plus 50. And that is a commemorating meeting of the first UN conference on human environment. And that was held in 1972. But then there, at Stockholm Plus 50, there was a discussion on the Stockholm Plus 100. And that means that so they're talking about a gathering the 50 years later. So that means that, all the youth should take a lead towards such kind of, event. So that I felt like it's so important to involve those younger generation to be able to tackle those global issues. So let me ask you a question. So do you have any ideas or experience how we could listen to them, or we could already involve them to take a lead or to take the initiatives for this, for solving these global issues like climate change or pandemic or those kind of problems? Yes.
That is a very important question now. We have been talking about climate change, sustainable development goals, and women's rights. When I first took over my job as a Secretary General, there was nothing in all throughout the United Nations system who were dealing with the youth issues. There was some about women. So I have prioritized two issues in addition to SDG and climate change and human rights. Then I first initiated, for the first time in the history of the United Nations, established a UN Secretary General's envoy for youth. This was the first time. Then when I advertised it, there were a few hundred young women and men who applied for that post. Later, after some very difficult processes, I chose a 28-year-old young man from Jordan, Mohammed Al-Hendawi. He's now working as Secretary General of the Global Scout movement now. He left the United Nations, and this post has been taken by a Sri Lankan young lady now. It's now going on. I thought that whatever we do is for our succeeding generations. With all these transformative science and technologies and communications and travel means, I think this world has become a very small one. Then we have to make sure that our next leaders should be well informed, well engaged from the beginning. That's why I appointed him, 28-year-old. It has become a big message to billions of young people that they were thinking that they could do something. I've been speaking out to young leaders, young people, have a big ambition. Ambition means a passion. At the same time, they should have compassion, and engage in real life world. Do not wait until you are being told to do something by elders. This is what I have been given the message. Then I have seen immediately some very positive changes in the mood. Then United Nations regularly recruits at least 1,200 interns. Every 3 months, we recruit 300 young men and women who are eager to learn more about the United Nations. Then at least 1,200 people are being interned every year. That means until now, how many thousand, tens of thousands people have gone through. Then they are taking very important role in their own communities. My message to young people has been that you should challenge your incumbent leaders, your presidents, senators, parliamentarians, mayors, and governors, and even professors. I've been speaking to them. Challenge your leaders. Just make sure that our generation should leave everything in arrangement, good way. You will see already some very prominent global figures as a young. Malala Yousafzai, she was fighting for education for girls, because he really wanted to have girls study. So her campaign was girls with textbook. That is much, much stronger than weapons. And of course, she was almost killed by Taliban because they didn't like girls study. Now she received a Nobel Peace Award. Then another lady, young girl, there's a Swedish
Greta
Thunberg.
Greta.
In 2019, I attended the General Assembly of the United Nations, and she was sitting with my successor, Antonio Guterres. Just two of them were sitting here. There were hundreds of world political business leaders, delegations. She was challenging the leaders. You have taken away my dreams. I will never forgive you. That was a strong message. I was really inspired. That's the real voice that I want to see from the young people. Therefore, I sincerely hope that such a prestigious global university like Tokyo University, you should really provide quality education to young people. I think they are our hope. Without their empowered, I think we have no hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So to provide or to prepare the official place for them and then let them challenge is very important. And in fact, here in the Tokyo Forum also, we have a kind of student session as a side event, so that I hope, which will be held tomorrow, but some of the students from Korea and from UTokyo, they will make some discussion together. Okay, Professor Hasegawa?
Yeah, I think that young people are already aware of the fact that they themselves will be the victim of our way to convey all those things and the civilization and everything. Yeah, and Malala Yousafzai and Greta Thunberg are the very popular images which represents that kind of young generation, not the power. Yeah, and I think that as for Japan, I think Japanese young people are quite meek, I think. Yeah, and so that we should let them speak out their opinion, and we have to trust them, and not just to teach them, but that we have to trust them, and we must make an opportunity for them to speak up their own mind, and let them have a power to change the society by their own the mind and the power, and those are the opportunities that we have to offer.
Right. Okay, so we should basically let them, let them take actions by themselves, and to make such kind of opportunity is very important.
Let them make their own opinion in the first place, and then they make speak up themselves.
Well, I think that's also another very important way for us to find a new philosophy, so to say, to think about the use of those scientific findings or use of scientific knowledge in society, and also to see those impact of the new science and technology on the society, and hope hope we could also make all this forum also to provide them or to also give them such kind of opportunity, and with these side events or whatever in the future, and then that is leading to.
You should invite the young generation people, not me.
Okay. Yeah. So we hope we'll be able to think about such kind of new, maybe a session highlighting those the opinions from the young generation. So thank you so much for the very nice discussion, and back to you, Miki-san.
Okay. Thank you so much, Secretary General Ban, President Hasegawa, and President Fujii for helping us launch this year's Tokyo Forum with such important messages for future generations. Please give them a big hand.